folks, and this is the watercolor class here at ArtsConnect over at Springfield Township, and today we're going to be doing a little demonstration on a little different technique for watercolor painting, and this is called poured watercolor painting, where you actually mix some tubes of watercolor up in jars of water and thin them and then pour them to make an image something similar to this, which is the painting that we're working on at the moment. So I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of that. What I've done to begin with on this painting here is I've drawn the image, and then you can see in some of the areas where it's a little bit yellowish where I've masked out those areas with a liquid masking product. There are a lot of different products like that on the market. I use one called, I believe it's called Magic Erase or something of that nature. So there's a lot of different types out there, but usually the cheapest one you can find works best, and those are available at Michael's or Plaza or one of those places, Hobby Lobby as well. So what I'm going to do to begin with is make sure I've got some clear water and a clean brush, and I'm going to wet down the entire surface of this sheet. And this is a half sheet watercolor, so which means it's about 19 by 22, somewhere in that area. So I'm wetting this down with clear water, making sure I don't scratch the surface of the paper with the brush as I begin that. So good and wet. And then I'm going to let that soak just a little bit while I mix up the colors. So I've got 3 staining colors here in the primaries. These are Daniel Smith colors. This one is called Azo Yellow. I'll be using permanolizarin, and I'll also be using indanthrone blue. These are all Daniel Smith colors. So what I'll do, take a little, this is a yogurt jar, I believe, put a little bit of paint on the side, and I'll take a brush. I can grab a brush here, and get a little water in there, and I'll mix that up. The reason I put the paint on the side is you want to make sure you don't end up with a big glob of it when you're pouring, because that'll kind of mess things up. So take a little bit more time than you think you might need to stir it, and make sure you get a nice bright color there. So we'll mix that one up, we'll clean our brush out, and we'll do some blue here quickly. Now see, if this were a cooking show, I'd have someone have prepared this in advance, so I wouldn't have to do anything except do the work, and then someone else could do all the cleanup and preparation. But this is not a cooking show. So this style of watercolor is a little more scary probably than some people are used to, because there's a lot of loss of control in this. You have to sort of trust that the paint is going to do what it's going to do, and your job is just to try to control it to some degree. It's kind of chaotic, because for those of you that like to paint in a very tight and direct way of doing watercolors, this is kind of a freeing thing to do, because it is really quite wild. It's a wild ride. So these are all staining colors. If you don't have colors that are staining and you were trying this at home, you need to make sure that you have staining colors, because you'll be masking quite a bit, and when you lift the masking off, if they're not staining colors, then the colors will lift off with the staining things. These are pipettes, little plastic pipettes. You can get these at Hobby Lobby or off of Amazon or Michael's or Plaza, and they're just basically for lifting smaller areas of color to have a little bit more control than strictly pouring. So because pouring is kind of a messy process, I'm going to take basically a turkey roasting pan and put down on the table here, because we're going to be pouring onto this table. I've also placed a plastic sheet underneath this in case we want to keep our table a little clearer. I'm going to double check this to make sure that I've got everything covered. I'm also going to keep a water bottle with a spray thing in it close by in case I need it, and I probably need some paper towels. I'll be right back.
There's some right here. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to tilt our thing, which get some of that excess water off. I see a spot that I've missed right over here. Okay, and then I'm going to apply this paint in somewhat of a diagonal. My brightest area I'm going to want right across this part of the painting. So I'm going to just pour some paint right across here. And I'm going to put some blue down in here. You can see it going around that. And we'll do some red across the top here. And then we'll take our pipette and we'll do a little bit more. And you can see it's starting to move around. So this is the point where I'm going to try to direct the flow. I'll let that run in that sort of diagonal pattern. And I see another spot that I've missed up in there. Let's use that pipette and drop it on there. And I get a little more yellow out in that area than I want, so I'm going to take the pipette and put a little bit more red out in this part of the barn. So once I have to get a little more orange, and kind of just mess that around to try to get it where I want it. And you see up in this upper corner, I've got a little blob here. So we want to get rid of that. And we'll use a, thank you, we'll use a spray. I just want to come off of there. Let's do that. How about that? So you, at this point, you just sort of manipulate this to control where your water is. Get rid of some of this on the edge here. Get that brown going out into the trees. And we get rid of our excess around the edges. So this would be the first pour, and whether or not I like this or not, I will decide once it's dry, because it's going to dry a shade or so lighter than what it's going on. Get rid of that spot up there. I might end up having to crop that. We'll see. And we're going to put a little bit more red up in that area. See, I have a spot right here. Actually, put more blue up in that area. And I want to get a little bit of this corner blue to come down, just a little bit, so I'll hold the painting diagonally right now. So, getting a little blue running down in there, so try to control that a little bit. You have to kind of stay with it for the first couple of minutes, so you can keep it. I'll lighten that area there just a little bit. And then I'll show you what it looks like after the pour comes off, after it dries and you've masked it again a second time. Here's this other painting. So this is the end result of several pours. And you can see where I've done the blue, the red, and the yellow across there. masking all that, masking out the trees, and eventually you go back in with some direct painting. And you end up with a pretty handsome watercolor with a graded wash in there that's very difficult to obtain when you were doing it in a normal procedure. So something you might want to try if you're interested in learning how to do that, or some other techniques. Certainly get on the website and check out our classes. We'd be happy to have you join the fun here at ArtsConnect for the watercolor class.